Here. Welcome to Evolution Hour on our delightful little Sunday morning, aka Monday morning, depending upon how you look at it. tortuganwordpress.com, which is our website where there's a bunch of stuff that's freebies, oodles of material, not necessarily as detailed as the books that I would be pointing to over my shoulder if I were in my den, but nope, still in Seattle and able to come up with a little bit of a show. As you know, we are plowing through Titans, the creationist dinosaur book. And it's a little short blip, in part because of the holiday seasons. To keep the material low, and particularly because I won't be able to put any of the links in until I get back to Spokane later in the month or early December, as the case may be, depending on how the passes run. At any rate, this particular one happens to deal with our Sarfati and Tay taking aim at Hugh Ross, who, of course, is an old Earth creationist. And it happened to deal with a little blip on Trilobites and whether they were on the ark or not. And to this end, he trots out a 2004 piece by Sarfati, which I will be putting the link up to, Trilobites on the ark, which basically just kind of bloviates on the idea that hyperspeciation is something that's built into modern YEC, and never actually gets around to any baraminological systematic analysis of how many kinds of trilobites are they, how come they didn't survive the flood, what exactly was going on with them, what is the creationist systematics on trilobites. And it's just basically a gee whiz moment to praise the wonderful trilobite eyes, which has been a trope in creationist apologetics for a long time, and certainly was the case by the time of Duane Gish in the 1990s. So it's a nice, hoary little bit. But remember, this book is citing somebody from 2004, Sarfati from 2004, which is 19 years ago. How come there hasn't been any work since then on clarifying the baraminology of trilobites? Is it because they just want to flick it away and then not have to bother about it? It would be fun to see them deal with the pieces, to see whether or not they would be willing to bump into Niles Eldridge and others, who has weighed in on the trilobite issue from the criticizing creationism perspective. So all of that is, I think, kind of an interesting little sidebar of a claim that is being made that has no follow-up in creationist apologetics. The main act on this episode has to do with a gruesome little moment that occurred earlier in 2023, which was the debate between Dave Farina, Professor Dave, and with James Tour regarding the origin of life. Farina is a bright guy and in his own way quite meticulous, but he also has a kind of shoot from the hip, bash you to the ground smugness, I suppose, that collided immediately with Tour. Dave had done 4 big videos, which I'll be putting the links to, which had scads of technical literature details that came up. I mean, this is a major issue about the various pieces that relate to the origin of life issue that Farina has kept up on quite a bit, and including quite a lot of papers that I wasn't aware of in my following it from that same issue. And but he was basically criticizing Tour's little foray into this, and they did a live in-person debate, which was effectively Tour presenting his firing shot, and I'll be putting the link to the main debate that they did in May. Aaron Ra was in attendance and asked a question later on, so you might want to stay past the end of the debate if you can endure it, to the Q&A section as well. And Farina in June did another video, which was kind of reprising his counter criticisms of the thing. I thought it was worth to bring up because there is buried in this bit both the issue about how the origins or bust topic should be dealt with when dealing with anti-evolutionists, and two, what are the actual salient points that the actual origins of life researchers, which, by the way, neither Farina nor Tour are doing on the matter of focus. So what intrigued me, well, the response that Farina gave, effectively, he was responding to another person, a commentary on the debate by Cameron Bertuzzi, Capturing Christianity guy, and astrochemist Paul Rimmer, who is a Christian who sees the hand of God in stuff, and it's actually done some research in the area of origin of life, and he was kind of taking a very delicate approach and admitting that Tour had made some errors and was misrepresenting some material, and that also there were some issues that were being downplayed by Farina. And I think Farina, in his hyperbolic manner, simply described him as a creationist. And that, I think, is an iffy argument to deal with. So I decided I would home in on a particular point that, to my mind, is more important than noting that Tour was just vitriolically smug in his approach in his side of the debate. And although he kept his temper down, Farina was vitriolically smug. And largely simply, both sides were simply repeating their talking points. For me, the interesting paper turned out to be the one that Tour was bumping into, which is about prebiotic experiments, whether or not they have yielded replicators that use exclusively the 3' to 5' couplings, which is what our biology does now, as opposed to ones that include a lot of 2' 5' ones, which is how the molecules connect together in bonding. So far as Tour is concerned, the inability to generate exclusively 3 5s is a slam dunk. Evolution can't originate from the origin of life side of the equation. Boop, it's dead. The relevant paper was one from a decade ago, Engelart 2013, which I'll be putting a link up to when we get back to Spokane, which actually generated a lot of components that are involved in living processes, but that also had a lot of these 2-5 couplings. Now, from Farina's point of view, this shows that there are 3-5 couplings that are being generated prebiotically. And from Tour's point of view, he needs to have it all 3-5, and at which point, if you can't get to that point yet, you've got the whole thing done. Now, I think the area where in the Rimmer talk that Bertuzzi had with on the debate, and that Farina was responding to, Rimmer brought up a commentary paper by John Sutherland, one of the major origin of life researchers that figures in this issue, from 2017, which explicitly regarded this 3-5 matter as a significant problem, which had not been resolved in 2017, and as far as I know now, still hasn't quite been resolved. This doesn't mean it's unresolvable. It just is that it's a significant issue, which I think Tour overplayed and Farina underplayed. And so anybody that's actually interested in this topic first should be extremely wary about trying to argue that the origin of life has been resolved from a materialistic, mechanistic, naturalistic point of view. On the other hand, lots of the pieces are being built up in prebiotic settings. And so what's the task of prebiotic researchers is to figure out how all these pieces connect up together and in what kind of environmental conditions, and also how to deal with it experimentally. the origin of life was surely involving multiple things all going on at the same time. And that's exactly how a typical experiment can't approach it. They've got to take a small number of components that they can vary experimentally to try to see what's going on. So until you can get each one of those components connected up together, the odds that anyone's going to be able to work out an origin of life mechanistically without getting all those little pieces straight and knowing what factors are involved in what order. And then there's also the issue of scale. If you have a situation where a dynamic process can't possibly be successful in a small petri dish, but will be successful if operating on a continent scale system of tidal forms and incoming asteroids and electric discharges and gaseous interchanges and that on a monstrously large scale, far bigger than you could ever possibly do in an environmental laboratory setting, that it may be the case that you're never going to be able to actually replicate things. It's possible, though, that if you know enough of the pieces so precisely that you can effectively hitchhike step by step by step by step and empirically generate artificial life that way. We'll see. Over the next 10, 20, 30 years, maybe well past my lifetime. It may be an insoluble problem. It may be a requirement that a divine magic spurgle god was required to go zot. All of which we don't have explicit answers one way or the other on. We do know, however, things like the reptile-mammal transition and all the other evidence that we have for evolution, none of that goes away. None of it, absolutely none of it disappears based on what was going on with the origin of life 4 billion years ago-ish. So anyway, I'm only going to be putting in the link to the Engelhardt paper. And so anybody that wants to keep tabs on that can be looking at what work is being done more recently than that. The current hot topic relates to wet-dry cycles and nucleotide amino acid nucleotide interactions that are taking place. It's not a conventional RNA world approach. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, but that's why people have done research. So anyway, this may therefore be a very, very short one. I don't see anybody in the live chat, so you're all suitably in bed or doing other things if you're in a different time zone. I think that pretty much covers it. We won't be having to deal too much on that. Again, I'll be sticking in the notations for the shows once I get back into Spokane. And we'll be continuing on with that. But I really want to highlight the fact that the origin of life issue is a lure that far too many anti-evolutionists just want to latch on to as the ultimate slam dunk that they can pull the rug out from under evolution at the base, which it doesn't actually do. All it does is make the starting point rather more mysterious. What's my suspicion? Looking at all the different pieces and how ubiquitous amino acids are in prebiotic contexts, the formaldehyde and so many other chemicals that play a significant role in the living processes that are found without any biotic means of generating them, that can be done completely abiotically. My sneaking suspicion is that it's a natural process. And what happened after that, literally billions of years of microbial evolution before you ever get anything that's big enough to be seen without a microscope, is completely consistent with the idea of a non-designed format. We'll be able to get some new variables that will certainly shake up the anti-evolution issue if we can find that there's living biologies, perhaps of a very different type than what we're used to with our RNA DNA systems, on some of the moons of some of the planets where there's liquid water and other things. Europa and others are certainly places. I think Enceladus comes up as well as a prospect on whether or not there may have been life on Mars at some point, even if it's gone extinct since. And there's even a slim chance that there might be some weird cloud living biological system in Venus. Not holding my breath on that one. If any of those things tick positive, that means that living biologies can be found in more than one planet than just Earth, and that changes the dynamics of how we're thinking about where life can occur and what kind of life it may be. At the moment, we're still in an example of one, which is what we have on our planet. So anyway, have fun with that little paper. Gear yourself up for the holidays. If you are in a mind for books, for holiday giving for yourself or science-loving friends and fiction-loving friends, don't forget the links that I'd be putting in every single episode to Evolution Slam Dunk and The Rocks Were There Volume 1, and we'll eventually be having Rocks Were There Volume 2. Hopefully we'll be getting that done next year. And the 2 Paralogs of Fog novels that I have out so far, and I'm working on number 3, hopefully also to be out in 2024 or maybe 2025. It all depends on circumstances, because I'm trying to keep the science material at a front burner and then my fiction stuff on a little sidebar on that. But anyway, I'm very proud of all the works that I'm doing, and they're fun reads. They're scientifically interesting and accurate for the 2 science books. They are a cornucopia of information. The Evolution Slam Dunk, of course, is on the reptile-mammal transition. And, oh, yes, and we need to remind everybody of our wonderful dear patrons. There we go. Put that up. Our colleagues and researchers and assistant researchers and friends and legacy patrons who helped all through the years on that. Every month it makes a difference to be able to get by to the next month. So thank you, everybody on that. And hope that this can continue. And if you have been thinking about plunking down a little monthly donation of $1 or $5 or whatever, or more, if you can do that without bumping into your financial limits, consider that as a possibility if you regard our work as being sufficiently valuable for that kind of thing. And let's stick up then our grand advertisement that Peter also did for us. Our advertisement for The Rocks Were There. And there was our little advert. Hope everybody had a delightful Turkey Day, Thanksgiving, Dinosaur Dismemberment Day, as some might think of it. And we'll slide on into the Christmas holidays for next month. And keep on the watch for errant wooden penguins. Everybody stay safe. Stay out of trouble in the relation where weather can get too hot, too cold, too rainy. And of course, places where people are getting bombs dropped on them. Don't bother about such trivialities as this program. Stay safe. So anyway, we will hope to catch you next week. Au revoir.